All right. It is 12:02 Eastern. So I think we'll get going. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thanks again for joining. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. We're really excited for this webinar. We've got a great session today. Uh, the topic is around leading with data, building funder and nonprofit partnerships to advance impact measurement. So we got a lot of good stuff in store for you. All right. For today's discussion, I want to kind of center the work around a couple kind of key elements. One, the importance of impact measurement. Hopefully everyone's on board with that. Two, funder nonprofit partnerships. We're really centering here as a key mechanism to help both funders and nonprofits advance their work. The importance of aligning on outcomes and really building, both compelling and defensible storytelling for your organizations to advance the work you're doing. So excited for this. I'm Brock Orbacklin. I'm going to be your host and MC for the webinar. I'm a senior director and account executive on the Impact Genome team. I have the pleasure of working with the RTX team here, as well as our nonprofits who are joining us for this great panel discussion in terms of helping them to leverage Impact Genome to advance their impact work and support them as they continue to grow, expand, and create awesome impact in the world. And I'm joined by my colleague, Franklin. Franklin, can I have you introduce yourself?
Of course, thank you for that, Brock. Hi, everybody. My name is Franklin Rodriguez. I'm a manager on our advisory services team at Impact Genome. I mainly support RTX as well as RTX's nonprofits. And like Brock said, helping them really leverage everything that Impact Genome has to offer. It's great to be here, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, Franklin. All right. So a couple of just housekeeping items here. As we go, if you have questions for our panelists or with regard to the discussion, please add those to the Q&A portion at the bottom. It's the little screen with the question mark in it. We'll get to those questions as they kind of make sense within the presentation, or certainly in the end, we have time set aside for, specifically for Q&A from the audience. We're recording this, so everyone who's attending today will receive a recording, and folks who registered and weren't able to attend will also receive a recording. So keep an eye out for that with a follow-up email. But yeah, hope everyone can enjoy, and we'll get going. All right, so before we dive in, just wanted to give you a very quick overview of Impact Genome. So Impact Genome's focus is on helping nonprofits build trust by proving their impact. And how do we do that? We enable nonprofits to report and verify their program's impact through the world's leading impact registry. Simple enough. We work with some really great organizations. We support funders both on the corporate side, the philanthropic side, and on the government side to, be able to prove their impact, capture data about the great impact that their nonprofits and social impact, environmental impact programming is having. We work with a ton of great organizations. This is just a subset of them. So really exciting to see the kind of network of folks adopting this evidence-based standard continue to grow. One of the key things I just want to highlight, there's a lot of things that Impact Genome does, but one of the key elements is that we create a verified impact report for each nonprofit that comes in and reports through our system. That verified impact report is focused on the outcomes achieved by the organization, really helping you to differentiate the work that you're doing from just, reporting on more of the outputs. We want to be able to help the nonprofits get high quality investor grade data that they can demonstrate to their funders, and the ability to really tell that story powerfully, not just from the really compelling, stories of beneficiaries, but also the impact you're having and how you compare with your peers in the field. So being able to help both nonprofits access this data and funders be able to access and aggregate this data to tell really compelling stories. And lastly, rather than just facilitating reporting, we have a broader Impact Genome membership for nonprofits. So there's both the impact reporting and the verified impact report, but access to the Impact Genome registry, impact tools, benchmarks, a verified impact seal, kind of a whole subset of information to help build the capacity of organizations. And we're really excited. RTX has been a long time partner with Impact Genome and has supported a large subset of their grantees with Impact Genome memberships to help them demonstrate and prove their impact. And I'm really excited for RTX to be able to tell you a little bit about their story. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the RTX team. I've got two awesome members of their team with us. First off, I have Kristy Becerra. Kristy is the Senior Director and the Head of Global Corporate Social Responsibility at RTX, and George Sutcliffe, Associate Director, of Corporate Social Responsibility at RTX. Thank you both for joining us, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Brock, and whoever is leading the slides. I appreciate it. We won't depend a lot on slides. This is just meant to be a quick introduction. First, I'm thrilled to see how many people are joining us from all corners of the world, including quite a few of our own corporate nonprofit partners. So really excited to see you all join us. If you don't know who RTX is already, I'll briefly share what it is that we do. So RTX is comprised of three businesses: Collins Aerospace, Pratt & Whitney, and Raytheon. And we are one of the largest aerospace and defense companies in the world. And to get you a little familiar with our products, our Pratt & Whitney business makes jet engines, so many of the commercial flights that you take, whether it's through Delta or other partner airlines, you have likely flown on one of our engines. Collins Aerospace, we really focus on avionics, interiors, so everything from the cockpit, all the electronics you see in the cockpit, the seats you're reclining in your interior of your aircraft, and many of the systems integrated into an aircraft come from Collins Aerospace. And our Raytheon business is focused on advanced sensors, satellite technologies, including weather detection and defense systems. So what does that all mean? We are comprised of almost 60,000 engineers. So our goal is really to push the boundaries of known science to solve some of the world's toughest problems. So our engineers are advancing, like I said, aviation, smarter defense systems, and creating innovations that take us deeper into space. So that's why it's really important. As you can see, we've got 185,000 employees all across the globe. And so our commitment to those communities where our employees work and live really runs deep. You can go to the next slide. There we go. So back in 2001, RTX celebrated its 1-year anniversary when it merged with Raytheon and United Technologies again to become one of the largest aerospace and defense companies in the world. To mark that 1-year anniversary, we made a huge commitment. We committed $500 million over 10 years to support some of the social impact and advancement of our communities globally. So in order to do that, what we really thought about is how do we really face the challenge of having all this amazing work done around CSR, but bringing different strategies into alignment to make sure that we're not only helping the company progress its goals, but we've got really leveraging the opportunity to build best-in-class strategy. So that strategy is designed not only to advance our business priorities and measurable progress, but also to strengthen our partnerships and amplify their impact. So what does that all mean? I know we're going to talk a little bit later in this session around how impact measurement really helped drive some of this work, and our partnership with Impact Genome was really a force in how we created the framework here. But our goal is really to go beyond checkbook philanthropy. How do we provide support through funding, volunteerism, and ultimately capacity building for our nonprofit partners to help them make the greatest impact that they can in their communities? And you'll see our investments are focused on three categories: STEM education, honoring service, and local community engagement. Those seem like really broad categories, and they are, frankly, they are. And what you'll learn today is that part of our work with Impact Genome and our work with some of our nonprofit partners on this call, like Boys and Girls Clubs and Engineering Ambassadors, is how do we refine the outcomes that we really want to achieve together in each of these categories? Because we could fund an immeasurable number of nonprofits that are doing great work in our communities. But the bottom line is there's a finite amount of resources that we can provide. And so, how do we ensure that our funding, our volunteerism, our support is really aligned to make the greatest impact we can in our communities? The next slide is, I just wanted to, as we learn more about how we built this program and work with our partners with impact measurement, I just wanted to give you a little snapshot and how we've, with this model, we've been able to make some really incredible impact with many of the partners that are on this call. I'll let my colleague George, who I think is on here somewhere, I'll let him talk a little bit about this progress we've made. And again, I'm thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to talk even more about how we're even able to have these numbers on the screen. Like, how can we talk about these numbers? How do we know how many students we've engaged? How do we know how many people have been reached? How we know how many volunteer hours are out there? And it's really due to our impact measurement strategy that my colleague George has been driving from the ground up. So over to you, George, for a quick overview of this slide.
Thanks, Kristy. Hey, everyone. Nice to be here. As Kristy said, we did make a big commitment when we merged as a country for the 1-year anniversary. 10 years, 500 million commitment. We're about halfway through right now, and these are very high-level results. We're measuring a lot more than this, but these are the high-level results. 32 million beneficiaries reached, and Impact Genome helps us track that number. We have over 740,000 volunteer hours, so it's not just working with partners such as yourself, but internally with volunteers. And then 264 million invested in social impact. That's the grant numbers, grant amounts. So we're definitely more than halfway there, ahead of pace. And finally, 1 million plus students engaged with STEM. As you may have seen in Kristy's first slide there, we have close to 60,000 engineers in the company. So STEM talent is something we, focus on. So, 1 million plus students engaged with STEM outcomes, and that could be STEM interest, STEM persistence, etc. So that's why we put a big focus on that. BGCA and Engineering Ambassadors are two of those nonprofit partners we partner with in the STEM area, so they can tell more about the programs there. I did also put some feedback down the bottom there. This also a STEM nonprofit partner, just some feedback we received on the whole process, us helping them with their measurement. My favorite line is the trade-offs that come with spending money versus delivering programs and spending money on measurement. So that's where we were happy to bring in Impact Genome to help them. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Kristy. Really great to get a little bit of the inside and background into RTX. And I will say from my end, it's been exciting to watch as you all have evolved and continue to advance the social impact work within RTX. So exciting to hear more of that when we get to the panel discussion. But first off, I want to move over to our first panelist, Mindy Heggen. Welcome. Mindy is the Associate Director for Engineering Ambassadors Network based at Penn State University. So Mindy, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for joining us live, and for those that are going to be joining us later when they watch the recording. I greatly appreciate all the time that you are giving us today to talk a little bit more about our programs and how the Impact Genome has really helped us learn how to do better at measuring our impact. Prior to this role, I worked at Iowa State University for 17 years in the Office of the Registrar and then academic advising. It was in academic advising that I created the local Engineering Ambassadors program at Iowa State. I have my Master's of Education with an emphasis on the challenges that overburdened populations face in American higher education, which is why the Engineering Ambassadors Network is so near and dear to my heart. I'm also in the process of completing a certificate in organization development and change management, which is also part of the assessment piece that is very important when working with these types of programs. So the Engineering Ambassadors Network, sometimes we refer to ourselves as the EAN. We're a K through 12 STEM outreach initiative ran through Penn State University, and we have a twofold mission of developing strong leaders today and inspiring engineers for tomorrow. Our mission is motivated by the need to attract and retain more groups in engineering. And we do this by changing the public perceptions of engineering, starting with the kids in the K through 12 school system, to build STEM literacy across all ages. We do this in the workforce. There's a consensus that we need more diverse engineers. As RTX shared, they hire a lot of engineers, but we need more people that are trained in that field. While engineering is not for everyone, if they don't know that they could explore engineering, then they never take that step. So we also want to build STEM literacy across all ages. Parents play a very important role in their children picking which school or institution that they're going to go to after high school. Technological literacy, specifically for our kids, we strive to teach critical thinking and innovation, teamwork, and problem-solving skills. Engineers will share that they don't solve problems by themselves. It's usually in a group. And you may be a civil engineer, but you're going to work with an electrical engineer and a mechanical engineer. So being able to work together is a very important tool. Next slide. Our shared mission is grounded in our 4 core values. So we create inclusive environments that support all of our ambassadors. We do have ambassadors from the East Coast, West Coast, and even Puerto Rico. Our ambassadors become confident communicators through our extensive communication and leadership training and outreach events. And then we build connection through all of our workshops and our resource sharing, our social media, etc. And then we engage with our populations that are closest to our local programs. Next slide. So the Engineering Ambassadors started in 2010 with then known as Pratt Whitney funding 4 programs, and that was at WPI, RPI, UConn, and Penn State. Wanting to spread the Engineering Ambassadors to more universities, our founder, Dr. Karen Tolley, secured an NSF grant that enabled us to hold our first national training workshop in 2012 with those 4 universities in attendance. This workshop trained ambassadors in how to use the effective method of assertion evidence and technical presentations. These workshops continued through 2018 with NSF support, growing the network to over 18 universities at that point in time. Next slide. From 2018 to 2021, during the pandemic where most of us went online, we didn't have network-wide funding, but we continued to run our trainings, even through the height of the pandemic where we switched to the virtual platforms. Then in 2021, RTX decided to strengthen our national network programs by supporting the entire network. This led to the creation of my position, which I'm very thankful for, which is a dedicated staff member to ensure that the network functions at the highest level possible. This support has led to a relaunch and increased the growth of our network, where we have currently 40 programs across the US and in Puerto Rico. In addition to the communication and leadership training opportunities that I mentioned, we also highlight the benefits of our network and the resources that they have, not only as an ambassador now, but an ambassador forever. Each program builds these connections through activities that we do as a group, which could be roller skating at our events or even bowling. And then our second part of our mission of inspiring engineers for tomorrow is through this K through 12 STEM outreach, where we inspire youth to envision themselves as future engineers. That's why the diverse role models that we hire are so important. And this is where the impact genome has really helped, because how does one determine your impact that they had on someone when you can't just ask them? So again, we are developing students to be strong leaders of today so we can inspire the engineers for tomorrow.
Thank you, Mindy. It was awesome to learn a little bit more about the Engineering Ambassadors Network and excited to hear more about it in the panel discussion. But before we get there, I'm excited to introduce our last panelist, Jason Sumontha. Jason is the Director of Research and Evaluation and Youth Development for Boys and Girls Clubs of America. So, Jason, can I turn it over to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So for presentations like this for accessibility, I like to give a quick physical description of myself for those who are attending that may have visual impairments. So hi, I have black hair, I'm wearing glasses, I have a bit of a stubble situation going on, I'm wearing a pink collared shirt with a gray undershirt, and around my neck is a lapel mic on kind of a necklace thing. Today, I'm here representing the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, which I'm going to abbreviate in terms of BGCA. Acronyms aren't my favorite thing, so I hope to reduce their burden on you by posting that into chat. So, a few quick tidbits about us. We're one of the nation's largest youth-serving organizations with more than 5,500 clubs across the country, which also includes a number of BGCA-affiliated youth centers on U.S. military installations worldwide. So in terms of our scope, our clubs and youth centers reach over 4 million youth on a daily basis. And overall, our mission is to enable all youth, especially those that need us the most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens. At the national office, where I work, I do a lot of different things, but overall, my work is about using data to show the impact and value of Boys and Girls Clubs and to help improve clubs' programs, practices, and services, again, using data. So one project that I'm especially excited to highlight today is our STEM Club Model Study. And this is a national research partnership with RTX, whose goal is to really understand what does it take to deliver high quality STEM programming in out of school settings? And when it is done well, what impact does it have for kids, for youth in areas like STEM career interest and academic readiness? So really quick about this study is that to answer these questions, we've partnered with two fantastic research firms, Lynch Research Associates and Informed Change, to gather and analyze data from 15 different Boys and Girls Clubs across the country. So we're looking at things like how staff training, club-wide supports, specific STEM programming, and other elements all mesh together to engage youth in a really meaningful STEM experience. And on my team, we are super big proponents of mixed methods research. So naturally, this study incorporates both qualitative and quantitative data elements, which means that there's formal surveys using established STEM measures, there's a focus group component, there's a youth advisory group component, there's qualitative components like this photo voice method. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but what's important basically is that RTX support and investment allows us to do this work with greater depth and detail, more extensively measuring outcomes, testing implementation strategies, and ultimately building evidence that really helps us understand how to scale this work. So this study is one of many research and measurement efforts that we do at the national office that broader demonstrates our investment in using data to continuously drive learning and improvement across the Boys and Girls Clubs Federation as a whole. So today, I'm looking forward to share more about the work that we do and how partnerships like this help to advance impact measurement and strengthen the field of youth development as a whole.
Thank you, Jason. Awesome. Well, thank you to all of our panelists for doing this quick introduction. Hopefully, folks have a good sense of what these three organizations are working towards. If I can ask each of our panelists to come on camera now, I'm going to dive into our panelist discussion. For folks in the audience, I'm going to ask each of our panelists four key questions, kind of help you to follow along. The first one is going to ask them about the evolution of their impact measurement work. The second about the investments and time frame that are required to kind of continue to advance and evolve the work. The third is around the challenges that they've faced in this process. And the fourth, to bring it back to something folks can leverage, is the kind of learnings and guidance that they have. So keep an eye out for these as you kind of think about the flow of the conversation. And again, if you have questions for folks, you can add it into the Q&A and we'll have a Q&A section at the end. So first off, first question for George and Kristy and the RTX team. Would love for you to tell us a little bit more about the evolution of your impact measurement, where you were, where you're going, who is really driving that evolution, and how these partnerships are really helping to move things forward.
Sure. I'll jump in there. Yeah, so as we said earlier, in 2020, we merged two companies. We actually had to merge all the CSR teams together as well. So in 2021, with that Connect Up initiative, we knew we had to get serious about measurement. We were doing a lot of like output type of measurement, like, counting up grant dollars, etc. But we knew we wanted to get more into the measuring outcomes and impact. So that's where we brought in we expert partner in the field, and we looked at various vendors, and we ultimately chose Impact Genome, as you may have guessed. But I think that first year we really just we collaborated on a framework, a measurement framework. We identified our key outcomes under our three pillars that Kristy identified earlier. And then we sort of just started with the very large grants, putting them through the Impact Genome process. To be honest, mostly just to get data for our external reporting purposes. That was one of our main reasons for doing this, getting validated data. Since that time, we've done a lot more, strategic use of this measurement and strategic use of this data. Year two, we sort of brought in, we realized, okay, we have like a global month of service, we have Giving Tuesday. What about employee volunteering and giving? Can we sort of translate outcomes for those areas? And so we did a pilot, and we are now doing that as well. Around the same time, year 2 or 3, we realized, okay, well, we are measuring large grants, but putting a small nonprofit, through this process, which admittedly is, time consuming, at least the first time. Impact Genome will tell you that as well. But we wanted to work with Impact Genome to, come up with a smaller survey, basically. So we did that. It's like a 10 or 15 question survey. I think they call it, Impact Genome registration now, registry. But we were the first ones that did that, and I think the nonprofit partners like that. Although now I think I'm trying to move more of them into the larger survey because we get better data. But I think yeah, and then finally I think we're in like year 4 of the partnership here. Like I said, we really started using this more strategically. So now we have a grant evaluation, basically score, where we bring in Impact Genome data, we bring in other data, and we mesh it all together into a weighted score. So that's what we're doing now, and it really gives us some insight into how grants performing. And we also started doing moving forward. We really want to get into the partner engagement even more, and whether it's capacity building or something else. So all along we did realize that just having nonprofits report is not enough. We want to help them help themselves, and that could be for us, it could be for any partner. So I think so we realized that definitely all along, but we want to really step that up in the coming years. And some of the people on this call, Jason just talked about a research study that we're funding. We're not just funding that. I'm part of that research team Jason mentioned, and I'm certainly not the expert in youth research, but I can give some guidance on my many years of primary research experience. So that's one example. Mindy will tell you that we have worked with them recently on really just looking at their program. Before it was like Penn State, WPI, all reporting individually. So now we're going to bump that up to the program level, and we'd help with some survey questions, etc. I did show you that quote earlier from another STEM partner that really appreciated some of the work we did there.
Awesome. Thanks, George. A lot of great evolution there. I feel like that's really key to hear, that this work doesn't always happen all at once. It takes time. It takes getting comfortable and familiar with work and kind of being able to then advance a little more in terms of the ambition. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mindy, can I turn that same question over to you? Can you tell us a little bit more about the measurement and data evolution at the Engineering Ambassadors Network?
Yeah, so when we first started, there wasn't a whole lot of data collection. There's just the basic outreach. Was there students? How many students showed up? Basic level data collection. And then when we got the NSF grant, that drove the type of information that we had to collect for that grant. And then when we lost that funding, there was no longer that have to component. And so we kept collecting data, but the why behind it and like what were we actually collecting was never defined. So when I took over the position, I have a love for assessment, and understand that you don't assess everything all the time. Like you pick something and this is what we're assessing this time, et cetera, et cetera. And so I have taken it to where we have really started to just look at different impacts or different steps of our impact, right? So last year we really focused on our workshops and our conferences. Are they impacting the ambassadors themselves? And what does that look like? And collected a whole bunch of qualitative data for that. We were receiving outreach data from all of the 40 different programs across the United States, and some of their numbers jumped dramatically. And we're like, I know you didn't do necessarily more visits, and the population just didn't miraculously explode. So we found out that some programs were interpreting our question as how many like physical interactions did you have versus how many individual students. And so once we discovered that, we met with George, we met with, Brock and Franklin, and we're like, okay, so this is what we got going on. And I think we're double dipping our data because Penn State would report data, then they'd send it to me, and then I would report it at the national network. So we were reporting some of the same things twice, which is not good. But then also trying to find a better definition of what impact even means. We can't go up to the kids legally and just say, hey, do you feel impacted? So how can we find that in other ways by asking teachers and parents and those sorts of things? So we are hoping to get much more accurate data, and continue to streamline our processes through this partnership with both RTX and Impact Genome.
Thank you, Mindy. That's really great to hear. I know it's not always a thing we like to talk about, which is, some of the kind of elements of the data that we don't love or that maybe are not 100% confident in. But the fact that this is a learning process, and I think RTX has been probably a good partner for you, just in terms of helping you understand that like perfect doesn't have to be the enemy of the good, and continuing to advance the work and find ways to improve each year. So, kudos. Jason, over to you. Can you give us a little bit of sense from the
Yeah.
BGCA lens of your impact measurement evolution?
Absolutely. So this is such a hard question to answer, to be honest, because the Boys and Girls Club organization, as you can tell, is such a big organization. And a little tidbit here is that we operated under a federal model, kind of federation type of model, meaning that these clubs across the US are somewhat of an independent entity in and of themselves, but they're all united under kind of one umbrella, under certain common principles and all of that. So as my role, I'm in the national office. Um, so one way that I think I can answer this question is thinking through like how these local clubs maybe evolve over time and how that also mirrors a bit of the evolution at the national office. When I talk and work with a lot of local clubs about like improving their data strategy and their like measurement culture, I see how they move through this kind of progression where it's like first, what is data? Like, what does it even mean? And slowly seeing like data is important. We need to start gathering data. Data has value in these ways. And then maybe evolving to gathering too much data beyond their capacity to process, understand, and work through. And this also mirrors a process of like who is responsible for data collection, where it begins with maybe a centralized person, and then it expands to kind of a group of people, to multiple teams of people. And this kind of growth and evolution also like incorporates or leads to some different challenges. Deals around like data literacy and thinking about like how George said, building capacity, not only reporting in terms of compliance to a grant or a funder, but also thinking about how you build the capacity to not only have one person do all the data collection, but have this be a value or norm that threads throughout the culture of your organization. So it's not up to one person. But as you expand that reach to more and more people, you start to lead to like more need around like standards and practices that we might call data governance, right? So one example I'll throw out there is, in my experience, you might have someone say, oh, here we really want to like continue doing this report. This is one person that had come up with these numbers last year. Can you help us like recreate this the next year, the next iteration? And because there might be a lack of documentation or the standards or practices aren't as well recorded, having that transition from one person to the next might be a little difficult or challenging in some ways. And then each data team might have their own standards. So I see a lot of evolution in terms of how they value data, the ways that data is kind of infused throughout an organization, and then the ways that we standardize those practices across different teams.
That was really helpful. Really just interesting, especially you guys are such a big organization and have that kind of, maybe not unique, but the federated model has its interesting and dynamic aspects, and really being able to see this like changes that start small and then echo larger, is really awesome. And as you mentioned before, the kind of the impact study that you guys are doing kind of feels like it's kind of like a culmination of that, like start small, measure stuff, and then think about what really matters, think about what longitudinal impact you guys are having, and being able to measure that is really awesome.
Yeah. Can I build off of that really quick too?
Brock, do
Um,
you mind if I mention something real quick? Because
Yeah, please.
it's just listening to Jason and Mindy is kind of tying it back a little bit about, nonprofits. I think sometimes when funders are, asking to dig deeper into the impact, it can feel really intimidating and feel like almost a threat, right? Like, wait, why do they want to dig so deep? Is this going to impact whether or not um, we will get funded going forward? And, what does this mean for me? And I think these are two really good examples of, at the end of the day, when we look at as a corporate funder, the bottom line is, okay, are these charitable investments really meeting the intended outcomes? And then we go and we talk to the Mindys and the Jasons, and we're like, okay, let's talk about how you're measuring it. And then we talk to the Brocks and the impact genomes, and we say, is this data more about reach, or is it about the outcomes? Like, are we building STEM interest, or are we just sitting in front of a student and doing a demonstration? It's taking it that step further. And what that does is, it isn't necessarily adding scrutiny to the nonprofit themselves. It's more about, let's take a look at how we are building these programs, and let's help you as a corporate funder demonstrate the value of this. And do you have the right system in place to evaluate that and to demonstrate that? And if not, let's work together to figure out how to do that. And whether it's through measuring your own program directly, like Mindy was talking about, or BGCA and Jason, they have an idea to have a more comprehensive study around STEM interest and after school programs. Like, we can think about this creatively and openly on both sides. And, one of the challenges with that is, the first time you go through this as a nonprofit, you might think, oh crap, my impact numbers are tanking, because now we're talking about real data and real outcomes. And that feels like, uh-oh, what does that mean? And at the end of the day, we totally understand that. And that's why we partner with Impact Genome, and we have really regular meetings with our nonprofits, is to say, look, we are on this journey with you. We understand that in these first couple years of going through it, we've got to work out some kinks and see, to Mindy's point, what are we actually measuring? Or is there some double dipping? Is there some like ways we can fill the gaps here, and work that out over time? And that's been, I think, the key to having and building the trust across these partnerships and working together, is that understanding just diving into the data shouldn't be viewed as a threat or intimidating, because at the end of the day, we're really trying to work together to make important impact and scale that. So I just wanted to kind of bring that all together as I heard some of my peers talk through, how they've evolved over the last couple of years.
I'd love to
Thanks,
add on
Kristy.
to that too, if we have space.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I absolutely love that, Kristy. So data is my jam. I nerd out about data all the time, so that's why I'm like, let's jump in. But I love the theme that I'm hearing around like growth mindset there, and how it's not like just like where are you starting as a point, but where can you go and how can we help you build and grow in a direction.
Well said. Just in the interest of time, I want to smash a couple of questions together, maybe kind of for a final go around. So maybe starting with the RTX folks, can you tell us about any particular warnings or guidance you have for folks? As Kristy, as you just kind of laid out I feel like a well said the kind of patience of building partnerships, understanding that things take time. Would love if there's any other guidance or warning you have from this process as you've evolved and kind of strengthened your impact measurement and partnerships.
Yeah, I think yeah, we mentioned a lot of this already, collaborating with the partners, with capacity building and other efforts, also collaborating with internal partners as well. Whether they're the CSR vocals who manage grants, or HR department if we're talking about like volunteer data and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely more collaboration both internally and externally. Um, I guess learning is change management too. I think this may have gone into one of your challenges bucket, but uh, that at the beginning there was some change management going on. So at both internally and externally, the partners, external nonprofit partners, that may have never done this before. They thought it might have been burdensome, and that's why I mentioned earlier the small grants came in. But so there's definitely some learnings there. But I think everyone once they do it once realize the value. And same thing internally, like why are we making our nonprofit partners do this? So there was the same questions internally, not much, but a little of that.
And George, just to tag on if it feels burdensome as a nonprofit to complete these surveys, and impact surveys they take time, let's be honest. It's not just for, let's say, one corporate partner who's making the request. You can really use that to help build your story of impact for future funders, for others. It isn't just, okay, this is what RTX or whatever company you're partnering with needs and wants, and I've got to check that box and get it out. I think it's important to think about how can you actually use this to build a story and to identify where you might have opportunity that's left on the table, and connect with potential funders, because it does go beyond just one corporate partner. There's a lot of value in participating in these impact evaluation exercises, and there's a lot of support for you as you complete those.
Well, I mean, Jason would appreciate this. We're bringing data together. So it's just not impact genome data, but we have a lot of volunteering data. Just bring this all together to tell the story. Is some more guidance, and you may need some more tools. We have this data warehouse visualization tool that we use as well. So yeah, just bringing data together in a consistent way is pretty powerful, and then you can more easily tell the story, which is the most important thing.
So, Mindy, can I kick it over to you? Any warnings or guidance from your experience that others would benefit from?
Yeah, I think all of us working for nonprofits can say that we don't do the work because we want to be rich. And so, time is money, and we don't have a lot of time because we're doing usually 50 things at once. But take the time, right? So have those meetings, define what are you actually looking for, put all that work in up front, and then start simple. And then build your assessment over time. Again, you don't have to assess everything every time, so set up some strategic touch points where you're going to assess A this time, B next time. We're going to go back and see how A improved or did not improve. And then like George and Kristy said, this data is not just for your one funder, right? Things are getting more expensive, and you're going to probably need more than one funder. So the time that you put into building your report and working with your data is going to make it so you can possibly get more funds later on and keep building and doing the amazing work that nonprofits do.
Well said. Jason, take us home. Any guidance or warnings from your end?
I would reiterate the point that collect only the data that you can process. Unused data is, I think, a disservice to any of the people that have contributed to kind of doing that data, right? It doesn't feel good when you have 5 surveys to fill out and then you see it reflected nowhere. Like the information, no one does anything with it. So I think collect data that is actionable, that you can actually leverage to use to make improvements, and also that's within your capacity to process. And then related to that, I think, is, as I said earlier, having a good data infrastructure that documents processes so that when we think about onboarding, when we think about passing the baton onto the next person that might be taking on something, that they know the context of the past and have the information to be successful when they take on that role. And I would say, lastly, is thinking through, I think, as George also said, capacity building. I heard from a wonderful team actually in a youth advisory council that we just launched that good leaders create good leaders. And what they meant by that is that a leader helps elevate other people and build their capacity to take on leadership as well. And I think if we think of that in a data role, how can funders or other leaders in data help their team members, help their organization to also build that capacity, that literacy in using data and communicating that to other stakeholders, and then taking those insights and taking some action from them.
Awesome. Great guidance there. One thing I might just add, just in listening to you all, is, obviously the importance of the impact data here, and to latch onto something that Kristy mentioned about the kind of understanding that it takes time, that it requires an investment of effort, time, but also hopefully that it opens up a level of transparency and connection that allows funders to really understand what nonprofits need to be successful in this, and that going the other way, that nonprofits understand what funders are trying to achieve and where they can help fill those gaps. So this kind of standardized, mutually agreed upon collaboration and partnership and information hopefully can benefit both parties. Both parties can see where they can lean in further and invest to help the other accomplish their goals.
And Brock, I just had one final thought.
Yeah, go.
Another piece of advice I would offer this group is not to hinder progress while waiting for perfection. I think that a lot of times we just don't go until we feel like we've got everything perfectly in place. And one of the kind of core tenets in our company is continuous improvement. So let's just get something going. Let's get something moving. Let's start the process and understand that you'll have the opportunity to continuously improve how you and you don't need to, it doesn't need to be perfect for you just to get started.
Well said. I feel like that's a guidance that we could all learn to do more of. And it's really refreshing to hear it coming from you all. So I don't think that would be the folks' expectations. So thank you. All right. Thank you to all of our panelists. Really appreciate the wisdom you shared and the kind of frankness and honesty. I wanted to make sure we have a little bit of time. I know we've got about 10 minutes left for Q&A from the audience. Franklin, can I pitch it over to you? And folks, if you have quick questions, can I have you add them to the Q&A? Franklin.
Thank you, Brock, and thank you, everybody. We have one question in the Q&A from Sarah Perry. So the question is, as RTX's approach to measurement has evolved, what are some of the most important outcomes or insights you're hoping to surface through grantee reporting? Particularly curious about STEM education grantees.
I mean, I mentioned earlier that we do track STEM closely. We have 1 million outcomes just in STEM. So, we track it because we have a lot of engineers, we have talent, but we have this STEM we call it STEM pipeline that we track, and that is, tracking all the outcomes starting with STEM interests all the way to career access, basically, in a whole spectrum along the way. So that's, one of our main, metrics that we track. Ultimately we want to try and get to, do they land at RTX or any sort of STEM related job? I don't think that our model is there yet, but I think that's a goal, but that's what we track.
Yeah, and I think what we really try to do is support a full ecosystem in STEM, and that's, from working with a BGCA and early interest in STEM to working with engineering ambassadors in Penn State and that persistence. Are they persisting in STEM by participating in this program and giving back? So all the way through from K through 12, we really want to demonstrate, and we take some of that reporting with our nonprofit partners to really hit that home with our stakeholders internally and externally. Like, look, we know the importance on this side of, direct talent development and how quickly they turn, but here's the importance on the earlier side to really ensure that we're hitting students at these critical transition moments in STEM and supporting them through that journey to ensure that they even make it up here to STEM persistence. And so in working with our grantees and through the reporting that you're asking, Sarah, is really we want to demonstrate to our stakeholders that we're kind of all in on the ecosystem. And we can only show that through the data, frankly. We can say it, we can talk about it, but now we can actually put numbers behind it and say, we are engineers, so very numbers oriented mindset at our company. And we can say, look, it's not just philosophy, it's really happening. And here are some of the numbers to show it.
If I may, Brock.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so as a grantee, I can say also it's important to collect the stories, right? So yes, RTX is number driven, engineers are number driven, but sometimes when you start reading through those stories, you'll find holes in your work. And then you'll be like, okay, I need a new funding model because I now need to have this conference that teaches this XYZ leadership skill because everybody is saying that they are not getting this leadership skill or something like that. So taking time to not only get the quantitative, get the qualitative data as well.
And one thing I might just add to that, I remember a conversation, George and Kristy, that we had at some point when we first kind of put all those outcomes together around the kind of STEM career pipeline and kind of, showed you kind of where the different grantees were working. It was kind of like, is this what you were hoping to achieve? Like, effectively, is this dispersion? You're like, yes, actually, like this is what we're doing. Like, we really want to invest heavily in that upfront part of the market, but to make sure that we're not missing out on helping folks actually kind of move through that. And I thought that was a really powerful thing, not just because you could answer that question and you had an intention, but now you had data to back it up and could kind of continue to make sure you're making that decision proactively rather than just reactively to that. So my hope is that that kind of guidance and data-based decision making can be something that we all take away. All right. Thanks for the questions. Just to make sure we have enough time, just a quick takeaway. Again, coming back to this focus on partnerships, we wanted to highlight the partnerships aren't static. They require trust, collaboration, flexibility, and transparency, things that, Mindy, Jason, Kristy, and George really highlighted throughout this process. Again, that it takes time. This is not a punitive focus. It's meant on kind of mutually building up each other, our capacity, our desire to achieve goals. And just a couple of kind of thoughts around takeaways, both from a nonprofit, social impact program lens, as well as from a funder lens, measure what matters. I think Jason, you did a great job of hitting on this topic of, and Mindy as well, of like, you can measure so much, but like measure stuff that matters to you. If the data point is not something that's going to help you, like each of these requires time and effort to collect. So make it something that matters, get buy-in, ensure your impact aligns with your business goals and share that data with leadership. I know, George and Kristy, you all have done a great job just thinking through like, why do we measure? What is this important? How does this data connect to the business? And so the business understands why this is so important. And I think that's been really critical in seeing this work grow. Demonstrating alignment, being really clear up front with partners you're investing in, that you can work together. I really want to highlight, I don't think this came up, but George and Kristy and the RTX team meet with their grantees on a regular basis to connect. Sometimes we're there to help talk about the measurement piece, but even without us, if there's this really strong alignment between what kind of RTX is trying to achieve and what the grantees are doing, and that if there's any kind of misalignment there, like you can talk it out and grow together. So it's really helpful. And then just lastly, around, helping nonprofits and funders to own their impact, evolving beyond just the focus on outputs, around the amount of money given, being able to share the great work that you're doing with outcomes really being the center, being able to demonstrate how you compare with your peers and being able to have that data really be front and center. And Mindy, to your point about the storytelling, both the quantitative and the qualitative piece is just so powerful with the work you're doing that being able to share that in a concise, exciting way is really, really awesome. Before we wrap up, can I do a quick round? Any last items? George, Kristy, start with you.
Oh, I
I feel
mean,
like
thank you. Thanks. This has been a great discussion. I learned some stuff today as well, and I hope everyone did. So thank you.
same. Thanks, George, for being a partner in crime and bringing up some of our the work that we're doing here. And I really, really appreciate Jason and Mindy joining us to talk about their story. And it's really important to get not just the perspective from the corporation that's obviously has a stake involved in doing some of this impact measurement work, but why folks like you, Mindy, Jason, and your organizations have found value in some of this work as well. So appreciate it and appreciate Impact Genome for pulling it together.
Mindy, how about on your end?
Yeah, thank you, RTX, for not only the financial support, but the support throughout the whole process and connecting me specifically with Brock and Franklin to help us, do better at the work and continue to improve things.
Jason, take us home.
Yeah. I guess I'll end by saying, like, yeah, thank you for this space so much. I think it really illustrates the importance of it takes a village, and that this work really benefits from breaking out of our silos, talking to each other, gaining our perspectives. And I feel like I've learned a lot today as well. So thank you for this space and opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thanks to all our panelists. We really appreciate your time and all your effort in pulling this together. And thank you to our attendees, both those that joined live as well as those that were listening later on. We hope you got something good out of this, and feel free to follow up if there are any questions for the panelists or for Impact Genome. But thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Brock. Take care.
Take care, everyone.